Hello, everybody, and thank you so much for watching this interview. I am so excited today to welcome my friend, my beautiful line sister, um, expert attorney, Lashonda Counsel Rogers. And
Hello.
Lashonda, thank you so much for being here today. And I want you to please tell everybody about yourself and all the amazing things that you do.
Okay. Well, thank you so much for inviting me. My name is Lashonda Counsel Rogers, and I'm a boutique personal injury law firm located in Atlanta, Georgia. And we like to say that we put the personal in personal injury. We handle auto accidents, major trucking accidents, and we also handle daycare center abuse claims. And I'm a mom, an entrepreneur, wife, all those great things wrapped into one.
Ooh, okay, so let's start with that because that's saying a lot. All those things wrapped into one. And in my audience, I have a list of all kinds of amazing friends who are moms, who are now trying to adjust to working from home, who are trying to have what we call balance. So, do you believe in balance?
I believe in it, but it's hard. It's very hard because for me personally, I wear so many hats. And I feel like from the time I wake up until the time I go to bed, I am helping other people or I'm doing something. But now, in light of everything that's going on with COVID and coronavirus, all of that, everything related to that, is causing me to reevaluate uh, priorities, one, and two, reevaluate making myself a priority. So I am working on balance. Like I said, I believe in it. It's just hard to put it in place right now, but work in progress. I am.
So, a lot of people don't believe in balance. They don't think it's possible, but it sounds like you think it is possible. So, let's talk about what a typical day was like before this COVID pandemic and then now, like what a typical day is like for you, especially trying to have this balance with your husband, your kids, and your firm.
Well, typically before this happened, my alarm clock would go off at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I would generally, try to get in some exercise. And by 5 o'clock, my kids are up, and I would make breakfast every morning, get them out the door by 6, then get dressed, and I would usually be at my desk in my office by 7:30, 7:45, and I would work until maybe 5 or 6. Come home, cook dinner, spend some time with the kids, spend time with hubby, and then I would usually be asleep by not 6:30, by 9:30 or 10, and then I would just do it all over again. So
Mhm.
it was just from Monday morning until Friday night, constant, nonstop, just doing, going, going, going. So right now, there really is no norm, but I've been trying to allow myself to sleep later. But because my body is so used to getting up at 4, I still wake up and turn over a little bit around 6 or 7. And I actually start work a little later now. I probably don't start until about 8:30. Then I go to 12, have a break, fix lunch for the kids, and then go until about 2 or 3. And the rest of the day I'm spending with the kids and my family and my husband. So that is definitely a pleasant change for me. So slowing down has been good. So I need to incorporate this into my schedule once everything settles down a little bit.
Yeah, that's great. So a lot of moms are really beating themselves up. I know for me, owning a practice just like you and having children, for Naya, when she came home, her school was set up. She's a sophomore, so she's all set up to work online, taking her test online, and she's self-motivated. Now, Austin's a second grader,
Yeah.
so we had some worksheets that they sent home, but he was smart. He said, okay, if I have to do this and I'm done with second grade, I'm doing everything in one night. So he kind of finished his worksheets in one night. But luckily, I had a lot of books to continue to work with him on. But in between meetings, I'm like, okay, 30 minutes of math. And then I'm thinking to myself, these kids are in school for 8 hours. So what are you doing to kind of help them to learn, or do you think that they've learned enough? Because I've been reading where people say, hey, it's the end of the school year anyway, and they would have been done, and don't beat yourself up. And I've even seen where some of my friends have actually withdrawn their kids from school because they said they couldn't handle it. So they said all the emails and stuff were too confusing. So they just withdrew them from school for the rest of the year. So what are you doing
Oh,
with
wow.
your kids?
Well, we started out, the first 2 days of homeschooling were tragic. We had no schedule, we had no game plan. And I'm not trying to say that we have a game plan now, but every day is getting easier. One thing that we did was we established a schedule and a routine. And I'm not even going to say that it was more so for the kids, it was more so for us, the parents. So I knew that there were certain times of the day that I needed to get my heavy lifting done for my firm. So the activities that require them to just sit and be attentive, that's when I would schedule my heavy duties. But as far as the other time throughout the day, we had a schedule like this is lunchtime, this is snack time, this is art time, this is online school time, this is actually cleanup time, this is exercise time. Now, whether they stick to it, it's hit or miss depending on the day, but we're trying very, very hard to establish a routine because it was announced here this week that in Georgia that the kids, they're not going back this school year. So this is how it's going to be for us until August when school starts.
Well, I'm sure we're right behind you in Maryland, I'm sure, but that's interesting about your perspective, because I think that people watching need to hear that, you know, doing something is better than not doing anything at all. And even if you're trying to balance work life, and we're both entrepreneurs, so we are really the boss and can kind of have some flexibility there, but our clients set deadlines and the court set deadlines and things still have to be done. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I do have some lawyers that are watching today that are maybe on the fence about whether or not they should start a practice. Many of them have been emailing me saying that they're miserable at their firms, and being home has made them realize that they don't like what they do. So this is a time where they're trying to use their expertise and somewhat pivot, I would say. So tell us, what prompted you to even start a law firm, and then give those people watching some advice that may be on the fence of becoming an entrepreneur like you.
Okay, so I always, when someone asks me that question, I always ask, do you want to know the real answer or you want to know the politically correct? So I think you want to know the real answer, so I'll give you the real answer. The real answer is I had no intention of starting my firm. I was working for a mid-sized real estate firm here in Atlanta, and one day they called me in and said that they were doing layoffs, and they gave me a severance package. And that was the end of it. I was devastated because I didn't see it coming. Well, I should have seen it coming because it was real estate and the real estate market was starting to tank. But I just didn't think it would happen to me. I didn't know what to do because at that point I was almost 2 months pregnant with my daughter, and I knew no one would hire me. So I just had to do something to survive pretty much. And luckily a friend of mine who is a doctor, she said, well, why don't you try personal injury? And at first I was like, heck no way. Because at that point, my image of a personal injury attorney was an ambulance chaser. And I was just like, there's no way I'm going to be linked with ambulance chasers. I'm an honest person. I am not going to profit off of someone's misfortune. But she kept saying, she's like, no, I think you have the personality. I could tell that you were miserable at your firm, which I was miserable, but I was too afraid to let that steady money go. And so I traded misery for money, which I would never do again. Wow. And so I took my first personal injury case kind of as a favor. And I realized, I was like, okay, I didn't chase an ambulance, and I really did help someone who needed me. So then from there, I agreed to take another and another. So it started at my kitchen table, and now we are at a high rise in downtown Atlanta. So for those who are on the fence, I would say, well, about, starting a business, there's no better time than right now, because guess what? The rug could be yanked from under you the way it was yanked from under me. So use this time to kind of strategize, because no one's job right now is secure. Even large firms here, I was reading our legal newspaper, they're laying off, they're furloughing people. So you may not have a choice but to go ahead and start. So wouldn't you want to start it on your terms as opposed to the way I had to, which was I was forced in it. And it was like, either do this or you don't eat. And I like to eat, and I like to eat well. So I had to do it. So now is the time. Just do it. Just force yourself, because there could be a time where that decision is made for you. So sorry, my long-winded.
No, you have said something that's so inspiring. You know, it's money versus misery, like you said. And I admire people who are in a field where they can actually kind of have a side hustle legal job, right? Where they're like, for me, I was at the patent and trademark office and was pushed out by one of my mentors who said, hey, you're getting too comfortable. But I couldn't test the waters. I couldn't say, well, let me try this out on the side, because it would have been a conflict.
Right.
And I heard the billionaire Bob Johnson speak, and what he impressed upon me was just that when you have that safety net, when you have that job, you don't work as hard as you would if that's your only alternative. Like you said, you had a baby on the way, you knew that no more money was coming in, so you had to do something. But I think that so many people talk themselves out of an opportunity. So what type of mindset would you say that you have to have? Because what I always tell people is it only takes one yes, but what is kind of your mantra that keeps you motivated every day?
Well, to me, failure is just not an option. And I think so many people, they think, well, what if this doesn't work? We need to flip that and just say, hey, this is going to work, and this is how it's going to work. It may not work the first time. It may not work the third time, but eventually, if you continue to work at it, it's going to work. And I'm glad that you're talking about mindset, because if you go into anything, any business, any endeavor with a terrible mindset, it's going to fail no matter what. So first things first, get your mind right and gamble on yourself. Like right now, if you're in a job, you're gambling on somebody else. You're gambling on somebody else to do the right thing and to do right by you. Gamble on yourself. And therefore, you know you're going to win, because you're going to do right by yourself, and you're going to see whatever you're trying to do through. Whereas you're waiting for somebody else, you're like in the palm of their hand, and they can just easily just throw you away, because they can't, because they've gambled on themselves, and they're the shot callers. It's time for us to be our own shot callers.
Yeah. And I'm smiling because I'm over here giving you a standing ovation, and I'm sure people watching are doing the same, because it's interesting, because it only takes one yes. Failure is not an option, and the money comes, because when you're passionate about what you do, the money will be there. And so that takes me to my next question. So you are very passionate about what you do. I've seen all of your videos. I'm very fortunate to represent all your brands as your intellectual property attorney. You're very unique in that way, that you can identify what it takes to have a business, but understand what it means to have a legacy, for your own children, which is intellectual property. And even with your business, maybe your children will take it over, but you have something that you can monetize if necessary. But let me ask you about your expertise, because personal injury law, like you said, a lot of people don't understand it. So kind of tell us in a nutshell what you do and what is your specific expertise, because you do have a good niche business practice.
Okay. Yeah. Well, personal injury, for me, it's not what people see on television. I know if anybody is in any type of major market or anything of that sort, they're used to seeing some sort of mass advertiser talking about, call me, I'll get you this fast cash. That's definitely not what my firm is about. We're about representing individuals who have serious injuries, who need serious help. As far as the trucking side of it goes, we represent individuals who've been hit by large, like tractor trailers, 18-wheelers, or commercial trucks. And with those type of cases, we see catastrophic, meaning very, very big injuries, such as brain injuries. People become paralyzed, things like that. Unfortunately, we can't take every case, but we do specialize in larger tractor trailer cases. Another area that we focus on is automobile accidents. Again, serious accidents, not necessarily the neck and, oh, my neck, oh, my back type of thing, but just serious injuries where you need someone who knows what they're doing, who's skilled to navigate and help you through that time. And the last practice area that we have, which it always piques a lot of interest, is daycare center abuse. Unfortunately, there are a lot of unsavory things that occur at daycare centers that parents need to be aware of. And we're there to guide parents in the unfortunate event that it does happen to their child. And it happens more frequently than most people think. So in a nutshell, that is what we do. And like I said earlier, we put the personal in personal injury. It's about our clients. It's not about, big win. We win big, but it's for our clients. And that's what keeps me going day in, day out.
Wow. So if someone is watching and they're not in Georgia where you are, can you still work with them?
I can. I would just have to partner with someone in their state. And we work with law firms all across the U.S. and we partner on these types of cases all the time. So that's nothing new to us. So we could help them. And if we can't help them personally, we're able to get them in good hands.
Okay. So let's say someone is watching and they do have an accident or their family member has an accident. What is the first thing, or I guess the top 3 things they should immediately do if that happens?
If they can, they need to definitely call the police. I know sometimes people are very weary about calling a police and getting the police involved, but the main thing is that you want to have a report from a third party, which would be a police officer, about what happened. Second, if you need it, get medical attention as soon as you possibly can. I know sometimes we're in a situation where obviously, if you have a broken bone, you're going to go right away. But with regard to, for instance, a brain injury, you may look at your body and say, you know what, I'm okay. But there are little signs that you ignore. And the longer they go on, the harder it is to treat. So if there's something that is out of the norm, get it checked out. It's better to be safe than sorry. And number 3, make sure that you get solid representation. If you call an attorney and you feel like they're not listening to you, or if you feel like they're not knowledgeable, move on to the next person, because this is about you and your case. You only get one body and you only get one chance at this. So you want to make a right decision from the beginning. So those are the top 3 things that I would say.
Wow, that's great advice. And I love that your slogan is "Our Firm Cares."
Yeah, because we really do. And it's some people who, they think that's just like, oh, who cares if you care? But you have to have someone that cares, because the reason why we care is because we love what we do and we love people. And if you have someone who does not care, they're going to throw you under the bus. And when I say throw you under the bus, that means treat you like a number. And no one hears a number. I mean, people say, yeah, it's a social security number, but I'm just saying you need to have personalized attention, because all of these cases are different. And there's some who try to treat them as if they're all the same. And that's a disaster waiting to happen.
Well, so you raised a good point about daycare abuse. You said that it happens more often than, we would recognize. And so now a lot of children are home. The daycares are closed, and maybe the child has said something to their parents during this time, or have alerted them to now where the parents do think or suspect abuse. So if they do, what are maybe 3 things they should do in that situation?
Well, it honestly depends on the age of the child. Obviously, if it's a small child and they're nonverbal at that point, it's very difficult. You have to just look at cues and signs. Is your child acting in a way that's different? When you drop them off, are they hysterical? Now, some kids, obviously, they have separation anxiety. But as a parent, a lot of times you have a gut feeling. Follow your gut. You'd rather be wrong and just say, I overreacted, than to continue to put your child in an unsafe environment. And 3, ask around. Ask the daycare providers, ask their teachers, hey, have you seeing anything or notice anything different with their child. And if you are not happy with their response, don't stop there. Contact someone to get help. Now, as far as older children, you want to talk to them. You want to make sure that they're not saying things that are out of the norm. For instance, one thing that we're seeing a lot, unfortunately, is a lot of sexual abuse in daycares. And it's not necessarily the daycare provider. Sometimes it's one child and another child. So ask them about, well, what type of games are you playing in school? Who's playing these games with you? Because a lot of times they have these weird little way of talking about a game that they're playing that's not a game. It's, oh, well, he touched my private part and I touched his, and then we did this. I hear that so often. And what happens is children are not being supervised, and things are just going on right under their noses because they're not doing what they need to protect the child. And so if you hear that, you automatically want to call the police or set an appointment with your daycare provider and explain and understand what's going on. Communication is definitely the key in these types of cases. And I know for some clients that come to me, they're afraid because they have to work and they don't have any other place for their child to go. And that is definitely understandable, but you got to think of the long-term harm that your child may experience if they're in an unsafe environment.
Well, I'm glad that your firm can be a resource in
Yeah.
that area. And, it's sad, but like you said, it's good that you care and that you're skilled in that area. So thank you for your service and for doing that and caring for your clients. And I know that there's so many things going on, and we talked about balance and time and scheduling. So I'm not going to hold you much longer, but I do want to ask, because we're dealing with this pandemic and you're seeing that different states are doing different things, like you said, with the schools closing and having curfews and businesses closing. But our heroes right now are the healthcare providers, the
Absolutely.
doctors, and they're on the front lines. And so when I think of injuries, I think of the cases of the doctors showing where they're tying bandanas or where they're having to reuse their masks. Do you think that they have a valid claim to maybe sue a hospital, or can you elaborate more on that?
Yeah, and it's one of those things where we're in a unprecedented time. So there's not a definitive yes or no, but I can say maybe. And when I say maybe, it's if medical facilities have protective gear available and they are not allowing medical professionals to use them, then that is where the problem comes in. It's one thing you can't give what you don't have, and I get that. But if you're having it and you're improperly rationing it, or you're discriminating based on who receives the protective equipment, then I think there will be several causes of action that arise against that. But one thing that I do hope will take place is similar to 9/11, when they had a first responders fund set up by the government. I hope there is some sort of fund that is established for medical care professionals, because I do think they will have long-lasting effects as a result of coronavirus, because we just don't know the depths of this virus, and it's very sad and unfortunate. And I definitely applaud all medical professionals who are putting themselves on the front line to save everyone in our country.
Yeah, well, I applaud them as well, and applause to you for taking time today to share this valuable information with my audience. And so, of course, now they're commenting and they're saying, where can we get in touch with Lashonda? So can you share where they can find you? And if you have any services or books or anything that you're offering, please share that information as well.
Okay, well, you can find me, again, my name is Lashonda Counsel Rogers, and I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. My firm is Counsel and Associates. And if you look us up on the web, it's www.ourfirmcares.com. On Instagram, it's Our Firm Cares. And also look out, we have a new division, which is called Truck Injury Law Group, that's going to be coming your way. And we also have Legally Lashonda that's coming your way as well. So There's no excuse. There's help out there. And if you need us, we are here for you. So thank you, Andrea, for this opportunity. Always glad to help you and your firm. And I always tell people, for you and your firm, if you have intellectual property that needs to be protected, Andrea is the person for you. Evans IP Law, definitely. They handle all of our stuff.
Thank you so much, Lashonda. And you are an expert, as you said, in personal injury, daycare expert, and you are an attorney extraordinaire. I mean, to have had your practice for so long and to be still standing, still smiling with your beautiful family. Congratulations to you, and thank you so much for your time. And would you be willing to go to the comments below and follow up with anybody that has questions?
Oh, absolutely. I'm always willing and able to help.
Okay, thank you again, and have a good night.
All right, you too.